Hi, I'm Kaylee.
And I'm Jenny, and we're going to talk about how your parents ruined your life and how. Twin Lakes Recovery Center says that roughly 54% of depression cases and 58% of suicide attempts in women can be traced back to childhood experiences. These experiences can include neglectful parenting, overprotective parents, and even abuse. Neglectful parents is when they act like a best friend instead of a role model. They have little to no rules, they don't supervise their children at all, and they don't protect the child like they should. Their lack of supervision also tends to lead to a higher chance of substance abuse and difficulty forming attachment later in life. The Recovery Center quotes that pregnancy, grade repetition, delinquency, truancy, and even substance abuse are very likely for only 50% of children who have suffered maltreatment. These kids also tend to display deficits in cognitive, attachment, and emotional skills later in life.
I personally used to be really close friends with somebody who had neglectful parents like this. We were only in middle school and she was already making decisions such as doing drugs and stealing, and her parents knew about them but did nothing to help her at all. As time went on, her choices and habits got a lot worse and she chose drugs over all of her friends, which is why we're not friends anymore. The lack of parenting and guidance she had during her important times of growing up led her now to be a Chatfield dropout who lives in her car with her pet hamster and is dating a meth dealer who is actively wanted by the police. Miss Barb, you asked us if this was a true story in our essay, and yes, it is. So if you know who this is, but yeah, her parents literally supported her drug use, which eventually led to her downfall just because they were scared that she wouldn't appreciate them as parents if they tried to control her. So the next type of parenting that we're going to talk about today is overprotective helicopter parents. So these parents try to control and monitor every aspect of their kid's life, like social and academic. They're overprotective, over-controlling, and they require perfection from their child. They also try to implement their own interests and goals onto their kids and force them to show interest in them. As they become adults, they feel disappointed in themselves and they feel like they're not enough because of their parents. Depression and anxiety also can start from a young age with this type of parenting. They also have more long-term repercussions such as underdeveloped brains, low self-esteem, low confidence, emotional backlash, entitlement, and low frustration tolerance. My parents personally used to be very strict and very hard on me. They would always be like over my shoulder when I was on my phone seeing who I was talking to. They would monitor my schoolwork to like the point where I didn't even want to go to school anymore or even try because I was like, stop. It also made me a lot more sneaky because I had to lie to get away with anything, even if it wasn't even bad. If I just wanted to hang out with my friends and I have a bad grade in school, I'd have to literally like sneak and do it. So according to research by Victoria Talwar, a child psychologist, children of strict parents are more likely to turn to lying in order to avoid punishments. So she proved this by examining 2 schools in Africa, and one school had really strict policies and one was very relaxed. And they played a game with the kids, what was it called? Peeping game. And they would put each kid in a room with a blindfold and they would leave an object in front of them and the kids had to touch the object to guess what it was. So they would leave some of the kids alone with cameras on them to see if the kids would peek or not. And she realized that the strict schools had more liars who are also significantly better at lying.
Everyone knows the popular quote that strict parents always cause the best liars, and our friend really shows that. He was forced to have straight A's, and anything less was quite frankly a disappointment to his parents. They always assumed his friends were bad people just because they like went out and had social lives and didn't have straight A's, which caused him to sneak around with his friends, like because he wasn't allowed to go out on normal times. Once they caught him sneaking around, they grounded him, and after they grounded him, they checked his phone every single night, which led him to feel like he had to hide a lot of social aspects about his life. That hiding and like sneaking around caused him to go into many bad situations and started underage drinking excessively and led to very unsafe decisions with the opposite gender. He felt hopeless and anxious all the time. He was depressed for a lot of high school, and he felt like he had to keep all the secrets from his parents, which led him to feel even more depressed. He felt like he had to live 2 separate lives. There are 2 types of abuse that everyone really knows. It's physical and emotional. Children who experience abuse are 9 times more likely to engage in criminal behavior, says Psychology Today. This early trauma also leads to disorders such as depression, PTSD, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and substance abuse. Abusive problems are hidden from the outside world, which is even harder for the people who are experiencing them because they have to feel these mental health effects alone. 80% of 21-year-olds who reported child abuse met criteria for at least one of these disorders, which is literally shocking. I personally have been subject to emotional abuse throughout a lot of my childhood. I suffered this torment for like many years. This abuse caused severe depression during middle school and like the beginning of high school, which caused me to have really low self-worth and self-esteem. Even after all these years that it had stopped.
Abuse is oftentimes really hard to recognize because it does happen behind closed doors. A friend of mine recently opened up to me about her physical abuse experience, and she told me it was okay to talk about it here, but I'm still going to keep her anonymous. But this happened last year, and she just had moved in with her dad, and she started experiencing really abusive parenting from him. He was really angry all the time, would take it out on her, and he beat her up with her crutches, would slap her, punch her, and blackmailed her into hiding all the bruises and cuts from him so he wouldn't get in trouble. Luckily, she ran away back to her mom's house, so that's good, but the effects from her dad still followed her. She is now diagnosed with PTSD, depression, anxiety, and an eating disorder, and actually just got out of a mental hospital. She ran away from her dad, but she can't run away from her problems that he inflicted upon her for the rest of her life. If the girl with the neglectful parents hadn't been ignored and had consequences for her actions, then maybe she would have learned right from wrong and realized what she had to do to thrive and be the best she can be. If the boy with the helicopter parents had a chance to earn trust and freedom, he wouldn't have felt the need to purposely go against his parents even when he was jeopardizing himself. If the emotionally abused girl didn't have to deal with the mental torment implemented onto her by her parents, then maybe she wouldn't be depressed or have self-confidence issues. If the physically abused girl wasn't subjected to harmful mistreatment, then maybe she wouldn't have anxiety and fear of trusting others. You never know how what you do and say to people is going to affect them. So as you go on through life, understand that everybody comes from a different background and has different stuff going on that you have no idea about. So simply just treat people with kindness no matter what. There's nothing we can do to fix or help any of the kids that we talked about today, or any of you guys who might be struggling with these issues as well. But all we can do is empathize and learn from our parents, and so we can treat our future kids a lot better so that they will be the best that they can possibly be. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.